I noticed that you're not racing to defend the books that I rattled off about Flamer or gender, whatever these books are about gay sex being taught to our kids at, oral sex acts at summer camps. Are we going to defend those books that were removed from libraries? Were those particularly advantageous for the well-being of educating our youth? There was a process for trying to identify books that raised questions. That's what the legislature in Florida put forward on behalf of parents, saying there are books in schools that parents have concerns about. Now, what would some of those books potentially be? Just hypothetically speaking in Florida. How about Genderqueer, a memoir, an explicit pornographic book showing sex acts? We good with that? Are we? Are we good with that? Now, maybe that's not a federal issue. I'll get to that in a minute. How about Flamer, a graphic book about young boys performing sexual acts at a summer camp? Man, would I love my 13-year-old boy to walk into a library and find that on the bookshelf. How about This Book is Gay, a book containing instructions on the ins and outs of gay sex? Now, these are books that were removed in Florida because the legislature took action, and then the various school agencies had to make decisions at the local level and have to go through and pull books and look at them. Now, some of the books that were raised were books involving race. Yes, that is true. And so books about heroes like Rosa Parks and Roberto Clemente. And I'd rather sit here and talk about Roberto Clemente finishing his career sitting right on 3,000 hits and then sadly but heroically dying in a plane crash off the coast of Puerto Rico, taking goods and services to help his fellow mankind as the hero that Roberto Clemente was and that I was raised to believe him to be. And that Rosa Parks was the hero that she was in telling people to go kiss her rear end and pound sand. She wasn't going to sit in the back of the bus. One of the greatest heroes in American history. But there were questions being raised about certain books, and race was part of that. And I would note in this conversation and about this issue of the books going back, I found this to be compelling, that the son of Roberto Clemente Jr., said he owns the book in question, reread the book, said his story is his story. He went through racism. It's something that can't be changed, Clemente Jr. said. But obviously, for the younger students, if it's something that they being school boards and parents, feel is too much for them, they might be able to utilize a different book with the same story, but it's framed differently for them for that age group. Now, I don't know. I have not read the book, okay? I love Roberto Clemente, and my son has read numerous books on Roberto Clemente. But I don't know what's in the book, and I don't know the questions involved about exposing the questions of race to our children. Because in a different story, Roberto Clemente Jr. pointed out, and I don't want to speak for him, I don't want to draw him into this political mess, but he made a point of saying something in the zip code of, if one seeks to have a colorblind society and raise your children that way, then when does one insert issues of racism into the education stream of our children? That is a very reasonable question. Do you do that at kindergarten, second grade, fifth grade, ninth grade? Look, by 11th grade AP history, I was going to Gettysburg and reenacting Pickett's Charge in my 11th grade AP history class. I was going to reenact John Brown's raid in Harper's Ferry over across the mountain from where I grew up in Virginia. Right? I was living and understanding American history in the context of that as an 11th grader, taught by my very liberal 11th grade AP history teacher, whom I loved. That's appropriate. Now, when do you talk about that? I don't know. But that is a conversation between parents and teachers and school boards and, yes, the state legislature. And so in Florida, they passed a law saying we don't want certain things. They acted, they pulled some books, and they put a lot of them back, including, I am told, the Rosa Parks book, as they probably should have, not having read the book. This is actually important to this conversation because we're taking something that is the Republican Party here, and I'll get to federalism in a minute, trying to say something pretty simple. Parents should have rights when it comes to raising their children. And that is not a debatable subject. Let me be perfectly clear. It is not debatable. Parents have rights when it comes to how their children are raised. Now, how that's enforced and how you protect them and where you protect them, that's a bit debatable. Parents have the right to know what's being taught. Parents have the right to be heard. Parents have the right to see the school budget and spending. Parents have the right to protect their child's privacy. Parents have the right to be updated on violent activity in their school. The next point that I would make is, briefly.
Yeah, no, I just want to ask unanimous consent to insert into a record an article that appeared on December 22nd about, because I've been absent, but I've heard you said that this book wasn't removed from the school, wasn't banned from
I did not say that. I said that the book was pulled back for review and that I am told it's been put back on the shelf.
Well, according to this article, that's not the case, but nonetheless, pulling a book like this for review, I mean, that's one of the problems with this underlying bill.
Okay, we're claiming my time because the gentleman wasn't here to hear what I said. Put it in context, when I was quoting Roberto Clemente Jr. about the issue of race and how if one were to desire to teach children that a colorblind society is preferred, that when you begin teaching about racism and race is a question. Do you do that when they're 3, 5, 10? When do you do that? When do you have a full-blown conversation about the issues of race with a child, depending on how you want to raise them and what your values are in terms of raising a child?
I would hope your values are such that at the earliest age possible, you would tell your child that discrimination is wrong and intolerable, that your child should respect.
But reclaiming my time, the extent to which and how I wish to teach my child about race might be more about teaching people that everybody should be treated equally and not view people through the lens of race, if that is the actual goal and desire of society. But the debate is among parents. The debate should be among parents and school boards. And the only issue that's being raised in this bill is what right parents have to know what is being taught. I noticed that you're not racing to defend the books that I rattled off about Flamer or gender, whatever these books are about gay sex being taught to our kids at oral sex acts at summer camps. Are we going to defend those books that were removed from libraries? Were those particularly advantageous for the well-being of educating our youth? When report after report in the wake of the shutdown of our schools is demonstrating that our children are now years behind in education proficiency.